Welcome to the XP Billionaires. It's Rafe on the line, and we've got Irene, Sky, and we do have a special guest today. But before we introduce her, we'll say hello to the rest of the team. So, how's Irene doing today?
Oh, Irene's doing pretty good. Pretty good. Still slowly plugging away at Bloodborne. Played a little bit of Dark Souls 3 because I decided maybe I wanted to see more of that game than just the opening area.
No, that's always a good thing. It's nice to see everything a game has to offer. So,
Right?
all right, Sky, how are you doing today?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Awesome. That's fantastic. All right. Well, we are just going to get right into this because I feel like this is going to be a meaty episode. So, we are going to be talking about yet another gaming franchise. And yes, this is going to be a spoiler cast. So, if you haven't played this game or series, you may not want to listen to us as much as we'd love to have you listening to us. Also, if you haven't played it yet, what's wrong with you? That being said, today our series we're going to be talking about is the Mass Effect Trilogy. And because of that, this is why we have a special guest on our show. So I'd like to introduce you guys to Terk the Drunk. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic.
I hope so. Hopefully you're sober enough for a long and lengthy conversation about space opera.
That remains to be seen.
All right. So the reason I've brought you on here can be easily answered with a single question. How many times have you completed the Mass Effect trilogy? Just the base trilogy. We don't need to talk about Andromeda.
I would say at least a dozen times, probably at least a baker's dozen, I would say.
What's a baker's dozen? Is that like 13?
Yes.
So enough said there. So we've got someone with way more experience with this series than we do. And as much as we love the game, somebody out there absolutely loves them more. So for those of you who haven't played it or don't know what Mass Effect is, we've got a little bit of a quick synopsis here. I'm not going to go into too much detail because really I feel like everybody knows the story at this point. But that being said, let's give it a start. So Mass Effect follows the story of Commander Shepard, who, after interacting with an alien relay, is warned of an oncoming threat to the entire galaxy. Their job, of course, depending on gender, is to investigate this threat while handling their newfound duties as a Spectre, a special government operative. And their first big mission actually directly leads into the oncoming threat and what that threat actually is. Did I miss anything?
No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. So this has been one of EA and BioWare's resounding success stories. And, unfortunately, those seem to be getting fewer and further between. So I thought we'd talk about the good old days. So let's start it off. Like, the game has been fantastic. And Terk, you've clearly enjoyed the hell out of this game more than anybody I actually know. So, well, I want to start with you. I just want to ask, like, what is it that makes you keep going back to it over and over again? What makes it so successful for you?
Honestly, it's really just been nice to have a character with a lot of flaws, like human flaws, that are completely relatable. Like, they're like, when you take into effect that, like, Shepard is like a horrible dancer, same as me, probably can't sing, same as me, but is completely badass and can kill everything in sight. That's been amazing to me. And even in the unrelatable situations that like I will never be the savior of the galaxy, or sadly I'll never bang an alien, but you get to play out this amazing story and make decisions that actually matter in the end, until the end. That doesn't really end up mattering what you did, but it was just really refreshing for me. Like, every other game I've ever played had a set singular ending, and then Mass Effect gives you like the 4 possible endings, and like, let's face it, Commander Shepard is like the badass of all badasses. So
Yeah, it was an absolute, like, just treasure to see what Commander Shepard had to offer as a character. You're right. Like, there was a lot of flaws. There was a lot of potential there to really, really grow the character. And it made it even more personal for the player, in my opinion, because you get that ability to make those choices. So the fact that you can make that even different every time and still get just a really enjoyable experience is, I think that definitely speaks to its success. But other thing for me is that I find it very far hard to find a very good sci-fi RPG that I can get fully immersed in. Like, for example, every time I've tried a Star Ocean game, I've been disappointed. And sometimes they're sworn up and down. Like Irene, I know you've talked to me about Star Ocean 3 so many times. I just couldn't do it. I could not get into it. That was I had.
Yeah, Star Ocean 3 is definitely a commitment to get into, because I would say that it doesn't really start to get super good until you leave the first planet, and that's like you're there for a while.
Yeah, and I admit I didn't get past that first planet. But getting back to it, like Mass Effect created a universe that was so captivating in its scope and storytelling. It was while it was a gigantic sandbox, it really didn't feel like one. So that was one of the other things. Being a very open, I guess we have to say open universe RPG in this game. In this case, it didn't feel like a game like Fallout, where I was just trekking in the wastelands for so long to get to where I wanted to go. And yeah, a lot of it was based on fast travel because you had a ship. Like, that was great, but it was just in terms of that just storytelling, it was the right way to go. It was they just happened to handle it properly. And like, there has been very few games that have just put me on the edge of my seat in terms of some of the storytelling points. Like, I can remember specifically the very beginning of Mass Effect 2 where Shepard dies.
Oh God.
Oh, exactly. Like
Immediately.
The first 10 minutes of the game, Shepard's death. But thankfully, death is only temporary if you're rich. So,
or important enough for rich people to want to bring you back to life using a mad scientist Lazarus type project.
Well, exactly. And I mean, if there's one good thing the Elusive Man ever did, it was resurrecting Shepard.
Elusive Man would argue that was probably his biggest ass mistake in the history of mistakes, but whatever.
Well, we don't take much stock in what he says nowadays.
Fair enough.
Exactly. So that really worked it out for me. Irene, what about you? Like, what did you love about it?
The cast and Space Boyfriend Garrus. Because Space Boyfriend.
Oh, Garrus.
I really liked Garrus.
Love of my life.
I'm just gonna pull back to the rest of the cast for a moment. Like, all BioWare games really have this one thing in common for me, and it's that they put so much effort into defining your party as people. And it's really fun to go in there and hang out with them and learn their backstories, learn their hopes, learn their dreams, do those loyalty missions, not just because of the mechanical advantages, but because I genuinely give a shit about these people and I want to know them more. So it really makes for an organic, very alive feeling universe when my party is composed of people that I would all spend time with, even if I like them to varying degrees. Just getting back to the original crew for Mass Effect, Kaidan and Ashley, whatever, they weren't the strongest characters ever, but they were still interesting in their own way. And though they weren't my favorites, they were still complete characters. They weren't half-assed, they weren't underdeveloped. They were interesting and fully fleshed out characters in your party. And I find that sometimes in RPGs you get that one character that's just, it's clear that not as much effort went into this character as everybody else. And it really takes me out of it. That and the Reapers, just in general. The fact that they're they don't actually show up to the third game, but there's just this encroaching sense of inevitable dread that underlines all three games, that really makes it it ratchets up the tension quite a bit. And I like the idea of this implacable foe that even if Shepard were to rally the galaxy's forces, it would be very unlikely for them to win because, if I remember correctly, it's been a while, so Terk, you may have to refresh my memory. The Reapers are almost considered to be like invincible. Like the technology that they have is so far advanced, and they've created this strategy that is so perfect in that they've made the galaxy rely on the one thing that they're going to use to basically shock trooper them into oblivion.
Well, yeah, they're almost godlike in that sense that they have this. They've been doing this for billions of years, right? And then they basically turn your friends and family into your foe. And so every time they turn one of the people that you rely on into one of them, they basically are making it so that your side loses two people, in that your friend and you, because you can't kill your friend, you know? And it's such an ingenious strategy to me.
It's insidious, but it's ingenious.
Yeah.
And then we also, I think at the end of Mass Effect 2, we get a glimpse into how a Reaper is made as well, because they were harvesting all those people, right? And turning them into like a new Reaper for the galaxy. That we saw. It's composed of just countless lives. So not only do they get basically all this psychological advantage, an extreme tactical advantage where they can cripple an entire solar system at will, separate each other, and basically make it so everything relies on the transport network that they can basically switch on and off as needed. They also, at the end of the day, gain numbers, as they would come out with like maybe one or two new Reapers.
Yeah, and they also take like the basic strengths of each species and turn it against each species, because like, okay, you take any of the Krogan and they're like tanks to begin with, but they still have the limitations, whereas when you take away their complete control over themselves, they have absolutely nothing that's stopping them from killing everything in sight. And it was just so interesting to watch that happen, and then to see the fear on people's faces when they realize, oh shit, that person used to be like kind of invincible, and now like there's no way to stop them even now. It was just so perfect. It was the perfect way to gain your numbers and to destroy your enemy.
Yeah, so the Reapers themselves were a very interesting villain. Just this like lurking force that no one knows about until it's too late.
Yeah, and then you have like the indoctrination part where they're turning, you know, these really intelligent beings into like basically mind slaves that think that they're doing the right thing when they're absolutely not. My favorite of the quote unquote villains was Saren, because he was so perfect in that he was so flawed, and he was doing it for all the right reasons. He was just doing everything completely wrong for those right reasons.
Yeah, he was indoctrinated, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, like from the very beginning. And actually he was technically indoctrinated before the story even starts, and that was just like mind-blowing. And then you have the Elusive Man, who is like one of the best villains I've ever seen, because he starts off as the good guy but technically the bad guy. It was good. I guys, I can wax poetic about this series for like 8 days straight. Like, I'm not kidding.
I really liked the Elusive Man as well, just to like put in another nod to him. Like the fact that Shepard always had a very adversarial relationship with the Elusive Man, but in a way that the Elusive Man was almost like a metaphor, he's very much like it's very similar to the Reapers in that he was hoping that by resurrecting Shepard, he would have this indoctrinated super being that he could use to his own like ends, right? It did not work out for him because he doesn't have Reaper superpowers, but he considered himself to be equal to them in that regard, and his hubris was astounding. Like, resurrecting Shepard because the galaxy needed them was definitely the right call, but the Elusive Man did it because he was hoping to use Shepard for his own ends.
Yeah. Honestly, that's the first game is not my favorite, but the second game was like so well done. Like, even for the character development, the voice acting was like phenomenal, and the characters, like you said, it's the characters that make it, and the characters were just so well done, like well written, well acted.
They fixed an egregious error from Mass Effect 1 as well, which was you couldn't date Garrus in Mass Effect 1.
Exactly. The only alien you could bang in the first one was Liara, and Liara is too sweet for me. So having badass Garrus, first off, Garrus turning into Archangel was like, oh my god, oh my god. And then the fact that you can date him, I was floored, and then also extremely excited at the opportunity to see what the hell a Turian is going to be like in a relationship. It was so perfect. I love the characters.
Oh yeah, he was hilarious in a relationship. Though I will admit, I think my favorite part about that relationship has nothing to do with Shepard or Garrus. It was the Solarian scientist.
Morden.
Morden.
Yes.
Morden, when you talk to him and he explains to you about lubricant because chafing. That is my favorite part of that relationship. Is that
And
Morden
also-
is like, no, you want to use copious amounts of lubricant because chafing. Also, don't swallow.
Yes.
I'm like, Jesus Christ. Thank you, but oh my god.
Oh my god. Yes, it was so much good.
Okay, well, before this goes in a very, very fan fiction direction, let's.
That is not fan fiction. That is an actual line spoken by the voice actor in context to Shepard.
Yes, but the
Yes.
gory detail that was about to come would have been.
You're not wrong.
Exactly. So let's kick it off. Let's move on to Sky. I know you haven't had a good playthrough of the series. I know you only played a little bit of the first one, but like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I did see like most of your playthrough, so I have a sense of, at very least, of the storyline and characters. And I would have to say my answer is also really the characters. I mean, you actually give a crap about these people, you know? And they're so entertaining sometimes. Oh my goodness. They're well developed, they're interesting, the scenes with them are fantastic. I mean, full disclosure, I can't stand Ashley. Like, she and I would not get along. But that scene between drunk Ashley and Shepard in Mass Effect 3 is one of the funniest damn things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I agree. Ashley's not my favorite either, and I wouldn't probably hang out with her like and get a beer with her or anything like that. But I cannot argue that she is a fully formed, developed character.
That scene, like, I would pick Ashley over Caden just for that scene in Mass Effect 3 alone, because it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Like, she is so drunk she can't even get off the floor. And Shepard just makes relentless fun of her.
Well, you know what? All Ashley needed to do was pull up a vid of Shepard dancing the night before. That would have done it. That would have shut them up real fast. Because even Garrus was like, "Hey, don't talk that way about my." I'm sorry, I can't. What is she doing with her arms?
Yeah, but Shepard always also knows when to pick a battle. So with Ashley that far on the floor, there was going to be no retaliation. All right. Well, let's shift gears, and now we've talked about what was so great about it, but we should now probably talk about the elephant in the room and the controversy that surrounded the ending of Mass Effect 3. So, for those of you who don't know the story, the ending of Mass Effect 3 provides you with a choice on how to basically end the conflict with the Reapers. I won't go into too much of the choices themselves, but the controversy that came up from it was that because it was a choice, it basically felt like all of the other choices that you had made throughout the series just didn't matter. And you just got shoehorned your choice of whatever ending you wanted. So I don't know, like, Terk, did that bother you at all?
The first time, no, and the entire reason for that is the first time I ever played any of it, I played the third game on my Wii U for the first like 8 playthroughs basically, and so I didn't really see the difference, like how it would really upset people. But then, and not even on my first full playthrough of the first of the 3 games, I was still fine with it. It was the second playthrough that it really hit me that the decisions I made throughout the game, like all these major decisions that I thought were so important, had absolutely nothing to do with the end game. And that was it. Like, it pissed me off that time. Like, I didn't do all that work to save the Geth just to have them kill them and my Edie. So, like, what the hell, guys? And then, like, it got to where I had my own headcanon that, like, the little kid was a lying liar, and that destroy is not the worst thing that's going to happen. That it doesn't kill all synthetic life, because I just want my Geth and my Edie to live happy little lives for the rest of their life. So the first few times I played, it didn't really bother me, but now it still bothers me every playthrough. And at the end, I play it and I do my ending, and then I'm just like, fuck, I hate you guys for this so much.
And that's fair. Like, that's definitely, like, it does feel like it can take away from, everything that you've done, which is really unfortunate. But it is what it is, whether it was the fact that they were rushed to the final production or if they just thought this was the right way to go. Like, who knows? But it's clear that it's going to cause that kind of backlash. I'm on the same boat with you in that regard. Whereas, at first, like, the ending didn't bother me, but, at the same time, I didn't really know what the controversy was about it. I didn't think about it. Once it was actually explained to me, it's like, okay, yeah, I can kind of see where this was a problem. Now, like, I know that they were crunched for time, but I feel like there might have been a fairly easy fix for this. If they wanted to at least give your decision some weight, they could have just tied all of the choices to what those choices you've made. So, for example, even if it was just straight Paragon Renegade, if you go the Paragon route, you go the route where Shepard becomes the Reaper's consciousness, or if you go the more Renegade route, you just do the Annihilation solution. Like, I feel like that even if they were on crunch time, at least that was something, and it would have been better than what they did in the final product.
Yeah, because it made it seem like everything you did, like, nothing matters. Like, okay, I could have been completely renegade the entire time and then made a Paragon decision, which wouldn't really, like, fit the character. Or in the end, like, I generally play a Paragon playthrough, and then I always choose the renegade option of destroy, because I can't see the reasoning behind all of the other decisions. Although I would absolutely love my next playthrough, probably I'm going to just shoot the kid, because I've never done it and I really, really just want to shoot that little shit so much.
Fair enough. You can't do it in real life, right? So
exactly, they frown upon
that. They do.
I'm told.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Irene, what's your thoughts?
So, I understand why people didn't like it. However, I would say that it doesn't necessarily bother me that much, mainly because, like, the games are still excellent, and I think it might sort of make sense, because, like, in real life, like, I can make all these, like, huge life-altering decisions, and when I get to another one, often, like, people sometimes make really weird choices, and, like, they're not necessarily consistent. And it's sort of like, even if I had done all this right stuff beforehand, I can make the one wrong decision here and fuck everything up for everybody. So in that regard, it's realistic, but at the same time, I understand that we're playing a game about space boyfriends and murder machines to not be realistic. So I can see why people would be upset, but I'm just going to say that it didn't necessarily bother me that much.
Okay, and that's just as valid a point too. So there's no. So for you, it's just a matter of, this was just another choice, and even though everything else was a choice, you're always presented with another one in life.
Yeah, so it's like, in a way, like, it's like, it's kind of like, it doesn't matter the decisions, you will always end up right here making this decision, because this is where all the paths converge, in a way, in that you have to make this call in the end. And I could have seen, like, maybe, like, oh, well, because you chose this option, which was so terrible before, we can't allow you to pick this option. Like, if there were some ways where, like, your decisions would either unlock additional options or take away certain options. Like maybe like you said, like you have a very straight renegade paragon dichotomy for just like those are the two options you're presented. But maybe if you had done X, Y, and Z, you get a third option to try something different because you have different resources.
That's actually an interesting way. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, so you take those like big, like instead of like every single thing you've done, like take those macro decision points and go like, okay, well you chose to cure the genophage. So how does that snowball into this decision you're making right fucking now? Because at the end of the day, Shepard's always going to be able to choose in that moment what Shepard wants to do. I just think it would have been maybe a little bit more interesting had they decided to say like, hey, because you did this stuff and chose this decision, there's also this possibility that you could explore.
Actually, yeah, that would be really awesome. I never even thought of it that way.
Like, you could still have your basic decisions, but maybe they're flavored differently, or like you've cured the genophage, therefore like there's some option that the Krogan present you with that would not have otherwise been available.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not even need to stretch all the way back to Mass Effect 1, because a lot of the stuff that you've done in Mass Effect 1 and 2 has built up to key decisions again that you're making in Mass Effect 3. Like, just because I always played like, save the Krogan, cure the genophage, because like, Jesus Christ, that was
a shit thing, like a shit show, like
from
the very beginning, and like they've paid for it for 1400 years, and now people are still saying, oh well, they're evil beings. It's like they're not. They're extremely pissed off because you guys were like really shitty to them and killed their babies all the time. Like
exactly. So the genophage in and of itself, like at the time, during the time of war in which it was developed, it's sort of like, the equivalent of the nuclear bombs they dropped on Hiroshima. No one ever wants to do it again. The war was fucking over, and no one's gonna argue, like, people argue, like, whether it was right or it was wrong till, like, long after we are dead. But the fact of the matter is, they're still using it 1400 years later. And, like, that is the point at which it becomes totally indefensible to me. It's like, yeah, you ended the war, but you never, like, how long are the Krogan going to stay in fucking jail? How long do they stay in timeout for? After they were elevated, the Solarians elevated them in the fucking first place to fight a different war, where they were sent into a meat grinder. And then when they expressed resentment at being sent into a meat grinder, they were given some sort of, like, eugenics treatment. Like,
honestly, that whole decision, it really made the genophage decision really made me to the point that I didn't like. Before that I didn't really like Solarians, and that was the reason why I didn't like the genophage thing. And then it got to where I didn't like the Turians for a little bit because they were again defending that, like, you can defend the decision all you want, it was still a bad fucking decision to keep going with. And then but then, when the Primarch, Victus, was just like, we can argue this all we want. This decision was made long before us. It's not a good decision now. So let's do this, because if this gets us to the end game, let's do that. And I liked that part because that it really did show the character growth that the characters could have. And then having the Dalatras being like, no, these guys are just evil and they'll never change. Like, okay, but you've never given the option for them to change and to be better than their ancestors were, to be better themselves. So you got to where, like, no matter, like, for me, I don't understand anybody who doesn't cure the genophage. Like, I can't even not do it once.
It's kind of top on my list of things. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm curing the genophage because we can equivocate about what the decision was in the moment all we want. Right now, 1400 years later, like, even if, like, you're one of those people that's like, yeah, it was justified at the time, it's 1400 years later, they should be out of timeout by now.
But yeah, they've done their time on the naughty chair. Let's get them off of that and see where they can go from there.
Exactly. You can't keep the Krogan in perpetual timeout for the rest of forever.
Yes.
Because they were bad once. Like, I'm like, oh wow, the Krogan were bad once? Jesus, did they not see all of human history before we were accepted on the council? Like, oh my god, did we just, like, send them a brochure that says, we're fine? For realsies, trust us?
For realsies. Like, I can honestly almost see someone like Udina putting that, for realsies, we're fine.
Yeah, except he would never, except, like, he would have totally been like, realsies, what the fuck is this crossing my desk? What is this nonsense? Someone bring me someone who can spell.
I would not blame him for that.
No, but that's like, okay,
Only
fine. He can be
for
mad
that.
about the use of realsies, but like he's a douchebag nonetheless. Stopped clock is right twice a day. Blah blah blah.
Fair enough.
All right, Sky. What are your thoughts on the ending at this point?
Honestly, it doesn't bother me. Because, really, this isn't a new thing. Like, plenty of games involve making choices that have consequences throughout the story but do not impact the ultimate ending. And honestly, I don't think it necessarily hurts the ending because, I mean, ultimately, when you come down to it, I believe it was Irene who said that, regardless, you're going to end up at this point. And Shepard, up until this point, has basically been hanging on by the skin of her teeth.
Yeah, and I actually would have been angrier had I been railroaded into one decision or another based on that one time I fucked up and didn't have a save file that was soon
Yeah.
enough for me to reinvest the time to change the decision.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, the other thing, about that is that it would be so easy to screw up the ending that way for yourself. Whether it's selecting the wrong option, but, you don't always understand. I mean, it is the case in the story that often you don't understand the consequences of your actions. Do you really want to be guided into an ending that you really didn't like or really felt was horrible?
And I will also point out, like, two things. Like, the prime example for that was Final Fantasy X-2 with its completion system, which, while interesting, could mean that you forgot to talk to an NPC in Chapter 1, therefore, and hear one line of dialogue, now you don't get the perfect ending. And that was the way that game was designed. And as much as I enjoy playing it, it's really annoying to have that happen and then, like, realize I've wasted all this time. It is a long game. And second, like, we've talked in the past about how sometimes the good option isn't exactly telegraphed very well. And then you end up blowing up the planet.
It would be so easy to fuck that up. And honestly, I'm not sure I trust any company to manage a complex system of decision making that competently.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it's so easy for them to screw up. Like, I still remember the time where I was like, I'm gonna be snarky in Fallout 4, and suddenly my character shot a guy in the face. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I really liked, because I keep getting reminded of Dreamfall Chapters, which is not an RPG, but it involves a lot of this sort of decision making like you get in something like Mass Effect. And I always liked when you moused over the decision on the selection wheel or whatever it was, the character would express their thoughts on that choice. And I thought it really helped give you a better idea of what that decision entailed and what they are thinking about that decision, why they are making that decision. Because I have found sometimes that in games that I make a decision that I think means one thing and it ends up meaning another thing entirely.
And then there was like, oh god, what was? I will point out that BioWare did eventually sort of figure that out with Dragon Age Inquisition, because the big decisions, they were like, here are your options, and it was like, this person will die, you will not be able to recruit the mages. This person will die, you will not be able to recruit the Templars. Like,
Yeah,
it was
that's
very
helpful.
clear about the knock-on effect of your decision, that if you made this choice, you would permanently cut yourself off from recruiting a group, and you had to pick which group to side with. And eventually, I think they managed to figure that out by the time they hit like the Dragon Age series a little more, because they add like, even though like it's not like in character, it gives the player the prompt. It's like, okay, you're about to make a choice that's going to cut you off of something.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to make your decision making with as much knowledge as possible.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that is coming up to our time at this point. Well, Terk, I want to thank you a lot for coming on to the show. I think you've really helped to give us a lot more insight, and it's been a lot of fun having you here. So if you ever have another series you're completely obsessed with, we decide to talk about, we're totally going to have you back on.
Yay!
Is there another series that Terk is completely obsessed with?
We'll work on it.
Not really. Everything so far has been Mass Effect. Like if I start playing another game, I'm like, you know what? I miss Commander Shepard and all my peeps. So I'm gonna go back, sneak back for a little bit, and then like 6 months later, I'm like, okay, well, let's go back to that other game. Oh, look, Mass Effect is on, and I could make that different decision this time, and then I don't because I want it the exact same because of reasons.
Regardless, Turk, thank you so much for being here. Is there any social media presence for you if people want to talk Mass Effect with you at all?
They can check me out on Tumblr. Brinty Loves Aliens. Brintey loves LOU. Oh my god, I can't even spell anymore. Loves the word and then aliens the word. And you can check me out there and totally spam me with all your Mass Effect stuff, please, please, please. I love all of it.
Whatever Tumblr has allowed to stay up.
Which honestly, it's a lot more than I thought it would.
Okay, awesome. And then for the rest of us, I mean, you guys know where to find us. You'll find me on Twitter at BIllionairesXP, and don't forget to check out my Twitch streams every Wednesday night. Sky, where can everyone find you?
I'm Sky Knight XP on Twitter and Twitch. I stream on Tuesday nights.
All right, and Irene, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me at irogue_XP on Twitter and Twitch, and I'm usually on Twitch Thursday nights.
As always, we'll have a transcript available thanks to our XP hobo, Hannah Bard, hopefully within the next couple of days of launch of the episode airing. And don't forget to check out that on our WordPress site. That's xpbillionaires.wordpress.com. Also, if you guys like what we're doing here, you want to see more, please make some suggestions, or you can also give us a donation on our Ko-fi page. That's coffee.com/xpbillionaires. All right, well, that's it for us this week. We will see you next time. So just keep gaming, guys. That's all I can say. Take care now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.